Welcome to the Designated Drinker Show, the podcast that's raising the bar on craft cocktails. I am your host, Louise Sullis, and with me is my very, very, very talented friend. She is my bosom buddy, the mixtress, DC Gina.
Hey, Louise, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Sweating a little bit. Very hot here in DC.
Where are you?
I am at Buffalo and Bergen in Capitol Hill.
How's it going? Things
all right.
Sounds like it's hot.
It's hot. You know, people are on the patio. God bless them. And you know, a lot of pickup, a lot to go right now. So that's good.
That's good.
You know, it's July in the capital.
Yep, it is. So, Gina, we all know there are a couple of famous couples that actually work together, like live and work together. So we know Tom and Rita, Will and Jada, Beyonce and Jay-Z, of course. All both, famous couples work and live together. But did you know there are actually a few famous couples who were engineering teams?
No.
Yeah. There was. Yep. There are a few. It took a bit to find them, but there are a few.
I thought the Wright brothers were related.
Well, these are married couples. You're funny. Right. They were an engineering team. You're 100% right. These are married couples. One being Emily Warren and Washington Roebling. And what brought them together, you ask me? What brought them together? The Brooklyn Bridge brought them together.
Wow.
Well, it's actually the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge, to be more specific. Emily was a civil engineer, and her main responsibilities were for the guidance of the construction of the bridge. And her husband was a chief engineer who would have supervised all of the construction. And actually, it gets a little bit bigger than that. It was a bit of a family affair because Washington's father was actually the designer of the Brooklyn Bridge. And when he passed away, Washington took over and finished out as long as he could until he actually fell ill, unfortunately. And Emily was the one who finished the construction, oversaw all the finishing construction of the Brooklyn Bridge.
And that's why I love it the most, because it's from a woman.
So I think it's kind of cool because it brings the saying, it brings truth to the saying, love builds bridges where there are none. Nice, huh?
Oh, that's very poetic today, Louise. That's okay.
I've been drinking. No.
For me, that's a gin quote, but I mean, let's see who the guest is today. I'm into it. What's the next
So let's bridge the episode together, shall we? Arr, arr, arr. And introduce today's designated drinker. He's also half of a husband and wife engineering team, the co-founder and general manager of Catoctin Creek Distilling Company, Scott Harris. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me.
Hi,
Thanks
Scott.
for coming.
Hey, Gina. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you. It's sad that I have to see you via screen, but
I know.
But we'll take what we can get these days, right?
That's right.
So, Scott, tell us, you've got to finish this joke. So 2 engineers walk into a bar and walk out as co-founders of a distiller.
Yeah.
How the hell that happen?
2 engineers walk into a bar and the husband says, I think I want to make this stuff. And the wife says, you're freaking crazy.
And look where you are today.
And look where we are. She's an enabler for sure.
So tell our listeners, how did it all start?
Yeah, so, both of us, as you said, are engineers. I was a computer engineer, so I was working in telecommunication systems and things like that. And Becky is a chemical engineer, so Becky was doing manufacturing processes, contact lenses, styrofoam plates, computer parts, you name it. Her job was taking things from research into mass production. And I was like, wow, that would be really cool. You would make a great distiller. And for many years, I was telling her, we should start a distillery. distillery. I would love to do that because I don't know anything about it. And I really like drinking whiskey.
And think how much money we'd spend if we just made it ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And, and everybody thinks you're going to get rich making whiskey and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that too. And finally, Becky says to me, she's like, look, and she like finger pokes me on the chest. She's like, look, I can make your whiskey. Making whiskey is not a hard thing to do. It's basic chemistry. But you need to you need to figure out if you can make money making whiskey. And so she challenged me to write the business plan. And that was kind of how we got started. Yeah, absolutely.
And have you figured out how to make money selling whiskey? Because a lot of people would want to know how to do that.
Yeah, we're still working on that.
Yeah.
The jury's still out.
It's just your generation that's going to make the money. But 4 generations from now from you, they'll be of your wealth. No
exactly. I like to say I'm in a very successful nonprofit.
I resemble that comment.
100%.
So that was kind of the way it started, but really, how did it take off? And then how the hell did you get to meet this one, Gina, over here?
Yeah. So, pretty soon after Becky, sort of challenged me to write the business plan. This is way back in 2008, 2009, so that time frame. And I was approaching 40 years old. So I was having my midlife crisis. And I was sitting in a windowless office with fluorescent lights doing PowerPoint charts all day. And I was thinking to myself, God damn it, there's got to be more to life than sitting in this office doing PowerPoint. And I kept dreaming back to when I was in high school. I used to work in a winery, and I was like, that was a job. I mean, you press the grapes, you ferment the grapes, you bottle the grapes, and then at the end of the day, you have something. I made this. I can be proud of this. And so that was driving my passion. Along with, as I like to say, 20 years of government taught me a great love of whiskey. And so I had brought that idea to Becky. And so as I'm approaching 40 and having this midlife crisis, her attitude was, look, we're not going to do a damn thing with all this money that we've saved up as engineers over our lives, basically our life savings, unless you write it down in a business plan and then go to the bank and get some cash, get some financing. And so that was her challenge to me. So I wrote a business plan. It was like 30, 40 pages long, and took it to the bank. And, here I am, this, 30-something guy with 30 pages of paper, never been an entrepreneur, never owned a business, never run a business, always just been like a white-collar worker, and saying, I want to start a distillery. And the bank's first question was, what's a distillery? And because there weren't any back then. And and so, I explain it. It's kind of like a winery, but we make whiskey and blah, blah, blah. And so Becky's whole approach to this was, look, he's going to take this business plan to the banks. This is 2008, 2009. So this is the time of the first major financial crisis, right? When Too Big to Fail came to be, and Lehman Brothers was collapsing, and Countrywide Mortgage went out of business. I mean, all of this, it was apocalypse at the time.
You mean good times.
Yeah. And, the tagline on my business plan was, when times are good, people drink. When times are bad, people drink. Nice. And so we took that to the bank, and Becky fully assumed that the bank would basically look at this and say, yeah, this is really neat, but it's pretty risky and we're not really interested. So thanks a lot. And then Becky, as the supportive spouse, would have been like, well, honey, you gave it your best, now you need to go back to work because we got kids in college and, we need to pay for that someday. And for us, what happened next was the real miracle, is that the bank said yes. And so then we found ourselves with a big check for $250,000, and we're like, holy shit, now we got to do it. Like, now we have to make this reality. And so we basically started ordering equipment and getting licensed and putting this all together. And within a few months, basically in January of 2010, we had started producing the first alcohol in Loudoun County since before Prohibition.
You mean this little product here?
Yes, indeed. Just like that. Yeah, we basically started making moonshine, rye whiskey, and gin from the very beginning.
It's exciting. So
that's when I met Scott. It was in 2010, 11.
Yeah, it was pretty early.
I was
you
working
read my mind, Gina.
I was at PS7 at the time, which is no longer, and I was running a cocktail program. And in comes Scott prior to having reps and all that stuff. And I forget what distributor you were with the first time around, or if you were self-distributing. And he brings this gin, and it wasn't Watershed yet. That was the second rendition, right? What was the first gin called?
I forget. It was probably just Catoctin gin or something like that.
Yeah, Catoctin gin. And it was good. But then very quickly after this, Watershed came out. And I mean, it's been a house favorite for mine forever. And I know that you haven't tried it yet, Louise. So like, let's jump into it and just try it, because I'm going to start to talk about it. And then like, you're going to be like, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about? So Scott, you and I, yes, absolutely. Let's do it. Scott, you and I have something in common. That is where I met Gina as well.
Yeah, exactly. I find it, I mean, we've known Gina since the very beginning, and we did some events early on together. And I remember one of them, you had done something like from cereal. You had made like a milk from a cereal and then made it into a cocktail. And it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind.
Cereal milk cocktails. That's right. Yeah, that was definitely 2010.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I got that's when Milk Bar was first happening in New York. And it was the first time I had cereal milk ice cream. And I came back and I was like, I'm going to make that into a cocktail.
Absolutely.
Nice.
All right. So guys, sorry. Guys,
I was going to say, tell me about the gin.
Yeah, so Watershed Gin, named after the Chesapeake watershed, which of course the Potomac flows into, and where we live. It starts with the rye. So we start with the rye that we use to make the whiskey, this local organic Virginia rye that has this beautiful fruity, nutty, velvety texture. We double distill it. So this is basically distillate that comes from the whiskey production. We distill it twice to get it really clean and nice, and then we macerate our herbs in there. So macerating the herbs, you're going to taste juniper, of course. It has to have juniper to be gin, but then also coriander, cinnamon, anise, orange peel, about 10 different herbs that we put into that recipe for that gin. And what that gives us then is that rye gives us a really sweet, fruity base. You know, some people have described it as velvety or slippery. It's got a nice mouthfeel. You know, it's relatively high proof. It's about 92 proof, and it has this really nice velvety mouthfeel. And then on top of that, you build on those spice layers. So you get the juniper in the nose mostly, but then after the juniper, you're getting, you know, spiciness from the coriander, like pepper. You're getting cinnamon notes. You're getting those licorice notes from the anise, all those things kind of playing in together, which we would describe kind of like a mulling spice profile.
Yeah, and those really come forward, especially even before. It's funny how well you taste them when people of knowledge explain them to you.
Yeah.
Let's backtrack just a little bit for some of our listeners that are the first time you're doing spirit tasting at your house. A bottle of the Watershed gin. When you're drinking a straight spirit, what you want to do is you want to get your mouth prepared for that kind of flavor, and you want to take a sip, kind of move it around your mouth, spit it out, and then blow out on your palate, because you're going to prepare your palate for having such a high alcohol content. Then take your second sip, and that's when you're going to actually experience what Scott is saying, and you're getting those aromatics on your olfactory is registering the fact that you have this on your taste bud, and then all of a sudden those anise and cinnamon become very prevalent, and you'll start to taste them up front on your nose somewhere in your olfactory, and then the other flavors of the rye and orange become the after. So you want to remember that when you taste something with that high of esters in it, you really want to blow it off. Prepare your mouth, let it start to salivate before you take the next sip, because otherwise, if you're not used to drinking spirit at that hot of a temperature, you'll taste nothing. You'll be like, this is just hot. and you'll not experience those flavors.
Yeah,
Sorry, I get that a lot about myself. They like the first take, they're like, she's just hot. And then they're like, oh, wait. Then they spit me out. And they're like, oh, no, there is something more to her. No.
Oh, you're selling yourself way short, Louise.
I love Louise. I'm sure if you're listening to the show and you listen, this is Louise's tagline. One way in there, but am I the best looking person on the show? You are.
No.
You win, Louise. You win.
It's like you spit me out.
All right. So a lot of people, Scott, I wanted you to talk about a little bit about distilleries and why you always have, people. So we'll get into the rye in a second. One thing that I find very fascinating that most people don't know about distilleries, the reason why you have a clear spirit such as gin is because you have to age your whiskey for such a long period of time, and you need some sort of revenue generating. But out of that revenue necessity, you really came up with such a beautiful product. Can you just elaborate a little bit on why you do that?
Yeah, it's absolutely the case. So we started, as a whiskey distillery. We were going to make whiskey from the very beginning, and we did. And in our production process of making whiskey, we use a Scottish style of distillation. So we're doing heads, hearts, and tails. So, the heads, you can't drink it. That's cleaner. The hearts are the whiskey. And then the tails are that extra stuff at the end of the whiskey that doesn't taste good for whiskey, and it has a lot of fusel oils. And so that stuff started to accumulate, and start to have tanks of it. And we needed to do something with it. And so Becky was like, well, let's clean it up. Let's redistill it. That way we can pull out the fusel oils that taste bad and leave just this beautiful natural rye base. And so we had that. Well, that rye base by itself doesn't have much flavor because all the flavor congeners were pulled out in the hearts when we made the whiskey. So this is tasting a lot like vodka, but it's not totally flavorless like vodka. It's just almost flavorless. It's not enough to be whiskey, but it doesn't have enough to stand on its own. And so then we said, well, very quickly, Becky said, well, let's make gin. And so we experimented. As you got to taste several of our iterations, we did 11 different tries before we found one that we really honed in on and liked. And so we're tweaking with, different amounts of the different herbs. There were some herbs we tried that just we couldn't make them play nice with other herbs. And so it took us 11 tries to get to where we are. And the cool thing about distilling gin, and we're doing it in a pot still. So we're not doing it with a gin basket like a lot of the big producers do. We make a maceration and then distill the whole thing in the pot still. And that means that all of those flavors line up like soldiers, like fractions of the distillation, and they march through individually. So at the very beginning of the distilling, and this, I love watching this, so fun to see it. The very first thing that comes off the still tastes like orange tang. Like it's this bright orange flavor that tastes so incredibly orangey and nothing else to it. And all of that comes through, and that's the orange oil boiling off the still. And then it's done, and then you start getting this like Scotch pine and pineland forest, and that's the juniper, right, coming through. For a long time, it's the juniper because there's a lot of juniper in the gin. And then you get notes of black pepper and honey and, things we don't even put in it. The black pepper taste, I believe, is probably part of the coriander, but it comes through and it tastes really distinctive. And then we go through and through and through. And then finally, at the end, we get into cinnamon. Now, cinnamon has two major flavors in there, two major fractions. The first fraction is that beautiful cinnamon roll, like you get at the airport, right? Cinnabon, or apple tart, that thing that you love. But if you've ever seen people take the cinnamon challenge, you know that cinnamon is also bark, right? So that second part is barky and bitter. If you put like raw cinnamon in your mouth, it's not pleasant, right? It tastes bitter and barky, and that part comes separate. And so what we can do in making the gin is we can keep this one we like and throw this one away. And so we only keep the fractions of the flavors that we like, and we're able to basically handcraft that flavor by doing that.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Gina, what drew you to the gin? Because I know that, if anyone can speak to like the quality of a gin, it would be, or of any spirit, it would be you.
So like, I like to when I think about a category like this, I have different uses for different things, right? I say there's some gins that I will use to make certain cocktails that'll stand up to different flavor profiles. What I like about the Watershed gin is that it is definitely a gin that can stand into a cocktail. So when you use things like grapefruit juice with it, or, you want to make a 50-50, or you're looking to drink it straight or almost straight in a martini, it holds its own profile. There are a lot of gins, unfortunately, that just, they fall when you put something else with them. Sure, you could do a gin and soda and it'll taste like the product. But when you put say even something as basic as vermouth in a gin martini, the gin will lose its actual ability to hold up, and all you'll taste is the juniper. One thing I love about Watershed, I like to use it in the fall for me, just because there's so many beautiful toasty notes. So my production of that, when I start to use it, it's definitely when I do things with gourds and pumpkins, or if I get into my Christmas tonics that I make. Because it's funny, I do put a lot of cinnamon bark in my Christmas tonic because it is super bitter. I like Mexican. I use a Mexican canale cinnamon. It's very, very bitter, but it's also one of my absolute favorites. But that for me is that's the reason why you can't just have one friend on a bar, right? You look at the back bar here, and I can put a name with every single product I have on my bar, but
That's
I also
awesome.
have a profile that I put it with. And if someone came in and they're like, I just like gin that has seasonality, 100% I'm going to give you Watershed. And be like, here you go. This is what you're looking for. Sometimes people will say, I want something that's a fruit bomb, and you'll go to a different one. But each one has its own use. But what I loved about I still to this day, and I've taken my staff to Catoctin Creek and to the distillery and like hung out and like given them education, is the fact that the product is the integrity of the product is so great. Like they really take time to like go through it. And like when he's talking about the two difference of a still, when he's talking about a basket still, you can do a basket distillation, or you can do column. And what he's talking about the pot still is that it actually has a long gooseneck.
Okay, so talking about all the beautiful things that you bring to the world, Scott, what else do you have for us on the show?
So we have some whiskey as well. As I said, this company is a whiskey company first and foremost. That's right. We got the Catoctin Watershed Gin, and we've got the Roundstone Rye Whiskey. And that's a 100% rye whiskey made in a Virginia style, which is basically then a pot stilled whiskey made from local grain. And that's what we've been making ever since we started this company about 11 plus years ago.
So I'm sorry, again, what makes it Virginia style?
So the Virginia style means that it's made from Virginia grain, local grain. So we're going to talk about a terroir, the flavor of the grain tastes the way it does because it was grown in Virginia, and the soil and the climate that we have and all of that. And the fact that it was pot stilled. So again, that pot still where you have the gooseneck and you're getting all that beautiful flavor that comes through in the distillation. Unlike, say, what's going on in Kentucky, which is a column still, which is a much more efficient process for getting alcohol, but it doesn't have the time to develop the richness of flavor that you're getting from a pot still.
Gotcha. So was that part of when you decided to build the distillery in the beginning? Is that the reason you went with the gooseneck style?
Yeah, we were really in love with basically a forgotten style of whiskey, the historical whiskey of America, which is, Virginia, the birthplace of American whiskey, was made here in Jamestown even.
Really?
And absolutely. And way before bourbon even existed, they were making rye whiskey and selling it in Virginia. George Washington, our first president, when he retired, he was the largest commercial producer of rye whiskey in America at the time.
I knew that, but I didn't know this was the birthplace. Who knew?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can be very proud
Scott.
of Virginia. That's why Virginia's for lovers, man. It's because we got all the whiskey.
We're all drunk.
Yeah.
So do you guys remember like social studies when you did that little thing in social studies where they made you do, what does America sell? And you had the rye belts and the corn belts and the blah, blah, blah. Well, the entire rye belt comes through our region.
Yeah.
So rye from this area particularly is insanely delicious because you have very hot days and cooler nights. So that rye at night, the flower of the rye opens up and you get this beautiful flavor. And that's why usually really good rye producer, so local rye producer will harvest sometime in the late afternoon or very, very early in the morning so that it remains open. So when you actually get the rye is at its peak aromatic.
Again, dropping knowledge.
First of all, as Scott knows, I use this on all the time. Now we'll talk about this rye. This rye is extremely versatile and makes absolutely stunning whiskey highballs. And a whiskey highball, if you don't know what that is legitimately just heavily carbonated water and whiskey. And I absolutely love this. Yeah. And I also like whiskey and water with just this, with like maybe like a half and like 2 ounces of whiskey and like a quarter ounce of water, like really cold, like a spring water. Or if I'm up in like Middletown, Maryland, a lot of people are on the well system and the water there is like really, really nice, good water. So like I just put a little bit of that in there and it's just really beautiful. And it's one of those things when you really experience, whiskey and water, especially water from a good well, it's just, it's transcending. It can be. It could also be disgusting. You have to make sure. I'm realizing now that you really better make sure that well is good well water. Take care of their wells.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
water is very important. And in the distillery, all of the water that we use comes from a reservoir up in the Appalachian Mountains called the J.T. Hurst Reservoir. And this is Appalachian rainwater runoff, and so the Kentucky people will talk about their limestone filtered water. And it really does matter because, in this bottle, 60% of what's in here is that local water. And the minerals and all those things that make that flavor are a big part of why this tastes the way it does.
It's really wonderful.
Can we talk about one thing though? So what is the higher proof whiskey that you do? So this is an 80 proof. What is the higher one?
So we do actually a few different, with the 92 proof is Becky's Distiller's Edition. So those are barrels that she's hand selected because they taste a little bit more interesting, spicier, whatever, some kind of different profile. And those traditionally for us then are being aged in Virginia wood. So the 80 proof is aged in Minnesota wood, but the Virginia wood is going all into the 92 proof product. The cask proof product is when we find that perfect barrel that's just so smooth and nice as is. Don't even add water to it, just drink it as is. And that one is really special. And then of course we have the Rabble Rouser, which is our bottled and bond 4-year-old product. And what that one is, the way that differs from most, let me see if I can grab it here. Behind me here is...
Also, it's extremely hard to get.
Yeah, it's hard to get because I don't have any here either. So, but anyway, so the Rabble Rouser is bottled and bond. So that means automatically it's 4 years old, everything made in-house, and 100 proof. But what we do differently is we open up that pot still. So we have the column on the pot still. We can open up those plates, and then that gives us an ability to run it like an old hillbilly still, a very old kind of traditional distillation where the spirit coming through is really rough, but it's got a lot of stuff in it. And if you give it enough time in the barrel, it's going to get really, really nice. And so that one is super hard to find. We're very limited. We only usually do about 1,000 bottles a year. And that one is usually sold before it even gets on the market.
When do you bottle that? Is it like, when do you bottle that? September, October?
We bottle it usually around Christmas, and then we release it usually in February.
That's what it was. I knew it was after the holidays because I wanted it before a holiday, and I got told no. I was like, what do you mean? Like, they just don't do it then. It's a beautiful
it's not ready. Because it's bottled in bond, it has to be exactly 4 years old. And so we can't bottle until it is.
It's stunning. It's I think it's a beautiful whiskey. And if anybody out there is an avid whiskey collector, like you need it, you need something to like put up against whatever. It's definitely one that's worth the hunt, or get on a list or a pre-sale if that's possible. I don't know, but like, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's
so,
nice
Gina,
of you to say.
What do you recommend? Is that just something you typically sip very clean?
Yes.
Yes.
That's when you sit around and contemplate life, and you open up a book and you take a moment for yourself and you think about it.
Write your memoirs.
Or you have a very interesting conversation with a close friend or spouse. I mean, sometimes, it doesn't always need something else. It just needs to be appreciated. Yeah. And don't do shots of it, because some people, I see people do whiskey shots of like these amazing whiskeys. I'm always like, you just took 2 ounces to the head and you have no idea what it tastes like. It makes no sense to me. Okay. Now so here's a different twist today. Scott's gonna make a cocktail, right? That's what
Look at you. Getting the day off, Gina.
I'm excited because I always have to make the cocktail. So when someone else steps to the game, I'm like, yes.
Yep.
So tell us what the listeners need, and I'm going to move my camera down so you want to see step by step. Basically, Scott will walk us through it, and I will make it on camera. Does that make sense?
Okay, so you're still going to make the cocktail, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to make the cocktail as you tell me what I need to do. Okay,
you want to start with the whiskey or the gin?
Gin.
Gin. Okay, so we're going to do a cocktail that was in Kara Newman's recent book. And her book is called Shake, Stir, Sip. And it's basically cocktails in equal parts. So this cocktail is called the Sunflower. And we're going to start with the Watershed Gin.
Do we need a stirrer or a shaker tin?
Yeah, so we're going to shake. So this has some citrus in it. So let's get a shaker of ice.
Okay.
Okay, do you have any absinthe with you?
Of course.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're going to do, first we'll do a rinse of the glass. I would use a coupe, and let's rinse that glass with the absinthe.
Okay. I'm getting it. Hold, please. All right, we have absinthe in the glass. We are
Okay,
rinsing.
absinthe, rinse.
No ice yet? No ice
No,
here?
not yet. Just like that, what you're doing. And then what I always do is I always pour too much absinthe in the glass and then I down it because I'm just
Got
a
it.
lush.
All right.
Okay, so now what you're gonna do, shaker of ice, and let's add equal measure parts. So we go 3/4 of an ounce of each of Watershed Gin,
Yep.
lemon,
Okay. Go ahead.
okay. Next we'll do some, any kind of orange liqueur. Dry Curacao is nice, whatever you have there.
Cointreau's okay?
Cointreau's great.
Okay.
And
All right.
the last one is Saint Germain.
And then again for 3/4 of an ounce?
Yeah, everything equal parts.
Okay.
Oh my God, you're gonna love this. I'm gonna make one as soon as this video is over.
It's kind of like a daisy and then not a daisy.
Yeah, exactly, because it's got, it's got the orange liqueur. It's got the Saint Germain in it. Once you make it and sip it, I'm gonna quiz you on it because it has, to me, there's something very special about this particular cocktail that I just love. So go ahead and shake.
Wait, I'm just gonna give everybody a pro tip really quickly. When you're making a shaken cocktail, you put all of your liquor on one side. Then when you are ready for the ice, you put it on this side, and then you put it on top. And when you fill the smaller side all the way to the top, that's appropriate amount of ice to shake a cocktail. Okay, still no ice in here?
No ice in there, yep.
Okay.
Give us a shake.
Ready.
And while she's shaking, we would also probably use a little slice of lemon peel just for garnish.
Okay. Are we double straining or single strain?
That's good enough, I think. Yeah, there's not too much, unless your lemon juice is super chunky.
Nope.
Yeah, so you go ahead and you can strain that into the coupe and then garnish with a lemon.
With all the absinthe in there.
No, I would go ahead and dump out the rest of the absinthe
Okay.
once you've rinsed the glass.
Let's discard the absinthe. And we're gonna fill it up.
Oh, look at that. It fits the glass perfectly. It's almost like I know what I'm doing.
She's a pro.
And then you want a
Almost.
lemon wheel or a lemon peel?
A peel, just a little peel.
So when you have a coupe-sized glass, I would say everybody just about 1/4, if not a little bit smaller. And then we're gonna atomize and then drop in or discard.
Drop in.
Okay, we're gonna drop it in.
All right, and give that a taste and tell me what you think.
Oh, that's so good. All right, we're gonna.
So what I love about this cocktail, what I love about this cocktail is the fact that it is a perfect example of synergy. It's got 4 parts, 5 if you count the absinthe,
lovely.
but the sum of the parts, you don't really taste any of them by themselves. They all blend together and you almost get these kind of like nutty, kind of cool flavors that come out of this cocktail. It's so drinkable as on its own, and I just love it. It's called the Sunflower.
It's kind of like the show, just a little nutty, a little fruity, blends really well.
Right.
All the things just come together.
So lovely.
Yeah.
I could
Nice
drink
for
that all
summer.
day long.
Nice for summer. That's one of our standards. Becky and I, our house cocktails that we make for ourselves here in the home bar. And the Sunflower is a regular now for us on that lineup since we got Kara's book. It's I'll come home from work. Becky usually works later in the afternoon than I do. And she'll come home and she'll be like, honey, make me a sunflower.
I would like to come over and be like, honey, make me a sunflower. I'm totally into that. So I heard there's one more cocktail to make. We normally only do one on the show, but I'm ready for a second.
Yeah, if you guys don't mind.
do it.
Another cool cocktail. People are always bitching, like, I can't drink whiskey in the summertime. And it's like BS. You can drink whiskey in the summertime. So you had mentioned earlier the Daisy. So we're going to do the modified Daisy, which became known as the Whisky Sour, right? And so we're going to get our shaker here again.
Yep.
Okay. Little Roundstone Rye. And let's go ahead. The Roundstone Rye, I'm going to say 2 ounces on that.
Okay.
So I'm going to do it here with you as we're going. And I'm going to do 2. Oh, that might have been a little more.
No one's gonna
one's
tell.
judging?
No one's judging.
All right. Now, next on that, I'm going to use some lemon. So we squeeze our own lemons here at home, and I have my little lemon bottle here. So a little lemon juice.
How much?
Let's
I'm
go
squeezing
for
mine fresh.
3/4 of an ounce of lemon would be good, or 1/2 ounce to 3/4, whatever you prefer.
Okay.
Okay. Let's add that in there. Let's go ahead and grab some simple syrup. So I have a rich simple, so I'm going to use a little less, but 3/4 of an ounce of regular simple syrup. A little less if it's rich. Unless you like it sweet, and then go for it. Okay, so that's our basic whiskey sour. Now I have here one, and this is optional, but I have one egg white in here. You can kind of see it there. I pre-cracked it.
Egg white.
So I'm going to add the egg
We'll
white.
We'll do a little variation for everybody at home. So if you're going to do an egg white cocktail, that's your first time, I suggest that you do it in the smaller side that we said we put the ice in earlier, and you separate the egg and let the egg white go in there. You could, of course, you never want to do it into the whiskey because it's a waste of whiskey when you get the shell in there, and then it's a mess.
Right.
Just a little pro tip.
We're going to do a dry shake, which means we're shaking without ice at first, just to froth up that egg and get the ingredients muddled together. So let's do that.
I'm ahead of the game.
And depending on how you shake, everybody, again, when you're doing a dry shake, you want to shake it as hard as you possibly can. And when you open up the container, you're looking for something that resembles a slight meringue.
Slight meringue, that's right. And you can do the merengue while you get the meringue.
So that's what you're looking for.
Okay.
Okay, now we're going to add some ice.
Hey, look, Gina, I did it. Right?
Now, with this one, we're just going to shake a little bit because we don't want to break down that egg. Just to welcome the ingredients together.
And then you're looking for that kind of froth. What kind of glass do you want this in?
A coupe.
A coupe.
I'm putting it in a coupe because I had one handy.
You got it.
And then I would add just a little touch of Angostura or whatever you like on top, just to decorate the foam a little bit.
So I strain this into my coupe, right?
Yes, please.
You see that nice, I don't know if you guys can see this on camera or not, but you
It's
have
beautiful.
a nice almost like 1 inch almost of foam. This drink is 100% technique.
And I did not hit it.
It's
That's
a
okay.
practice
I
drink.
didn't either.
So then if you're making this at home for yourself, a really good way to do the bitters is to put your thumb over the top of your bitter, over your bottle to control it. And then you take a little knife and just
Oh,
kind of
that's cute.
give it a
Oh,
little
my
froth
goodness.
and make it a little bit special for yourself.
I have an amoeba.
Let me see your shape.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of, I can't show it to you. My camera won't go that way.
Now
But
you can really see the line on my
I
cocktail.
have a blob. I have a blob.
And you can see that I don't have one hardly at all. I'm going to go back to the drawing board.
Well,
Oh,
listen,
well.
if you're listening to the show, you can go to what's the YouTube channel to see the show?
Oh, for us, it's Designated Drinker.
So you go to Designated Drinker and you can see the tutorial on how to make a proper egg white cocktail with whiskey, or a whiskey sour if you saw the egg white.
And you can see how it's a fail, too. But I'm sure it's going to taste the same. It's just
I'm
not
somewhere
as pretty,
in between.
right?
My foam was only about 1/8 of an inch, so.
Listen, practice makes perfect, people. You can't just start it and then think that you're going to have 20 years of experience making a beautiful cocktail, right?
Yeah, right.
Exactly. See,
Let's
there's
toast to that.
the
That looks great.
non-pro. Cheers to even,
Cheers.
like, you know.
This is great.
Doesn't that taste amazing?
I mean,
Is it, so Gina, what I'm
Yes.
pulling out now is a lot of cinnamon notes. Is that, is
so
that,
again, so you just add, so basically what you just did is you added lemon to it, and lemon's reacting with like its own flavors, and everything in chemistry, right? Flavors react to different things, and lemon happens to have quite a bit of acid. So when you have something that's acidic and something that's floral like rye, and you put them together, it's like, See, that's where you're getting all of your tones.
It's not as pretty as yours, but it's tasty.
Yeah. And the egg white gives it a nice mouthfeel too. There's a richness to it, like a smoothie.
Yes. Totally.
So Gina, we talked about this aquafaba, right? The garbanzo beans.
Water. Yeah.
Big fans of the aqua.
So aquafaba, if you basically what you do with that is you drain off your chickpeas, make yourself a nice salad, retain the water, and you use that in place of the egg white. You need to use a little bit more than an ounce. So right now, when you use an egg white, you're about an ounce of egg white. The aquafaba, you need just a little bit more to get there, and you need to shake a little bit harder. So
gotcha.
So if we're using 1 ounce of egg white or one whole egg white, then you're using about an ounce, between an ounce and a quarter, an ounce and a half. And when you want to use aquafaba, you're going to have to not get the low sodium on that one, because you really need the breakdown of that of the starch that happens in the can when you get the chickpeas.
Gotcha.
And you can make it yourself, but honestly, if it's your first time go at it, just get a can of chickpeas, because you're not going to do it the same and you're not going to get the same result. You're just going to have some slimy water.
And your drink will probably look a lot like mine.
It is a really great vegan alternative for a frothy cocktail, and it's super tasty.
Well, my thing is, I was telling Scott, it was very common in Mexico when we were in Puerto Vallarta. There was an amazing cocktail place doing amazing things. It was something I wasn't expecting to find. And they were using the chickpea water, one, because of the safety, the heat in the summer, and I would imagine maybe the cost, I don't know. But I couldn't tell the difference. I mean, I've had many of your cocktails, and it wasn't that I felt like I was missing out. So I would like to think that I know what it should, taste like, or at least feel like, mouth feel. And it wasn't like I felt like, oh, I'm having the vegan version of bacon, which I don't care what anyone says. There's no such thing.
All right. Louise.
No, we got to do our housekeeping, Gina.
Come on.
No, you come on. Where are we? Do you like that bad? Tell me, where are our guests going to go to get all the tips, how-tos, tricks, and how to make this cocktail look like yours, not like mine, and also get the links to find out where all of Scott's amazing products are. Where are they going to go?
You're going to go to designateddrinker.show. Scott, are you open at the distillery now?
Yeah, we're open now. We have limited service. It's 50% capacity right now.
Perfect. And
so again, where are they going to go? And we're going to give them links to the distillery.
To
where are they going, Gina?
Show.
Yes. So all of our listeners can just go straight to our website. We'll make sure all of the links of how to get there, where to get it, everything that's going on that Scott and his lovely wife are doing. So.
Okay.
Now it's you.
Last question, Scott. Have you ever listened to our show?
No, I haven't. I'm going to be on it, so I have to listen now.
So in this day and age, everybody identifies themselves with something, and you might identify yourself with a needle-nosed beetle that burrows their hole into the ground and stays there forever, and then pops out in 7 years with a new product or a new hive. Right?
Product. I've got whiskey. No.
But if you had to identify yourself as one spirit ingredient, what would it be and why?
One spirit ingredient. So like something I would make into a drink, a liquid.
Drink, food, just one ingredient that's your spirit ingredient that really defines you.
Golly, that's funny. So I was born and raised in Germany. So first and foremost, what that means is I am promiscuous with spirits. I drink anything and everything. And it's all in the name of research, of course.
Of course it is. The IRS knows it to be so.
That's exactly right. All of this is research. But
exactly.
If there was one spirit ingredient that really sort of defines me, it would be the first thing I ever drank as a 5-year-old kid growing up in Germany. So when we would have dinner in Germany, Germans have huge meals, and our landlady, who was like my grandmother, would pile your plate high with food, and you would eat it all and clean your plate, and then she would fill it again. Yeah, you had to. You clean your plate, and then if it was empty, she said, well, you must be hungry, so I'll fill it again. You would clear your plate like 3 times, and then finally on the 3rd plate, you'd be like, I can't finish anymore. And then she would look at you and she'd go, what, you didn't like it? And so at the end of this meal, you're like bloated and you've had too much to eat and all this stuff. And so we would get a German bitters called Bonekamp. And this is like a German version of Amaro or like Underberg, these kinds of things that are a little more popular today. But at the time, it was just this bitter thing. And everybody at the table would get a shot. 5-year-olds, 8-year-olds, it didn't matter. Everybody got a shot of this. And we'd all look each other in the eye, and it was extremely bitter. Didn't taste good at all. And we would look each other in the eye and we'd go, 1, 2, 3, boom. And then we would all shoot this liquor together. And in Germany, the Bonekamp, this thing kind of like Jägermeister, has one extra ingredient in it that's not available in the US, and that is paregoric, which is an opiate. And so that opiate would basically take your digestive system and go, and now you're not feeling bloated anymore. And then you would go, okay, time for strudel. So
I thought it was just like when you were 5, it's like time to go to bed.
Well, I would probably sleep really well. I'm sure my parents loved the ride back home.
I bet.
Love that. All right.
That was wonderful. Thank you. So your ingredient was, one more time?
Bonekamp. So it's spelled Boonekamp. Bonekamp.
There you go. There you have it. I know we haven't had that one before, and I doubt we ever get that one again, Gina.
Probably not. Probably not.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, guys.
The Designated Drinker Show is produced by Missing Link, a podcast media company dedicated to connecting people to intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Missing Link is a proud partner of Hearing Charities of America, a nonprofit organization that supports those who are deaf or hard of hearing. To learn more about HCOA or to find out about Missing Link's other podcasts, head over to missinglink.company. That's missinglink.company.